There is a version of yourself that exists only online. It doesn't breathe, it doesn't age, it doesn't feel consequences. It is curated, edited, polished, built from angles, captions, and selective truth. For most people, that version is harmless. A filtered photo, a carefully chosen moment, a small performance for an invisible audience. But sometimes that digital version becomes more important than reality. Sometimes being seen becomes more important than being real. And in rare, terrifying cases, the performance doesn't stay online. This story is not just about a murder. It's about obsession, about anonymity, and about what happens when attention becomes identity. This is the story of how an internet persona didn't just hide a crime, it helped create one. Born in Canada, Luca Magnotta grew up without fame, influence, or notoriety. There were no early signs of celebrity, no childhood spotlight, no extraordinary talent that brought public attention. What people later remembered was something quieter, but persistent, a fixation on image, on how he looked, on how others perceived him, on how much attention he received. Those who encountered him in early adulthood described someone deeply invested in appearance and validation, someone who wanted to be admired, recognized, and known. But admiration didn't come naturally. The modeling opportunities were limited, the acting aspirations went nowhere, the recognition he imagined never materialized, and slowly frustration set in. In a world where attention equals worth, obscurity can feel like failure. And then there was the internet. The internet offered something real life never could: complete control. He created profiles across multiple platforms, carefully selected photos, carefully written captions, carefully managed interactions. At first glance, it looked like confidence, like self-promotion, like ambition. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. When posts didn't get attention, he didn't move on. He doubled down. Investigators later uncovered a pattern: multiple fake accounts connected to him. Accounts that praised his appearance, accounts that defended him against criticism, accounts that argued with anyone who questioned him. He wasn't just posting content, he was performing popularity, creating the illusion of relevance. To the outside world, it looked like engagement, but in reality, it was one person talking to himself, a digital echo chamber. Somewhere along the line, a line was crossed. Anonymous videos began appearing online depicting extreme acts of animal cruelty. They were deliberate, they were staged, and they were uploaded for reaction. The internet responded immediately. Outrage spread, people shared warnings, communities mobilized, and something unusual happened. Instead of disappearing, the uploader seemed energized. True crime communities and online investigators began comparing notes. The videos shared similarities. The language used in comments followed patterns. The upload behavior was consistent, and slowly attention turned from the content to the creator. Whoever was doing this wanted to be noticed, wanted to be discussed, wanted people to look for them. This wasn't impulsive cruelty, it was performative. In May of 2012, a video appeared online that changed everything. This time, there was no ambiguity. This was not an act designed to shock through implication. It was a murder. The killing of Jun Lin, an international student living in Montreal. What made this crime especially disturbing was not only the violence itself, but the intent behind it. The camera placement was deliberate, the framing was intentional, the act was meant to be recorded. This was not a crime meant to be hidden. It was a performance. Jun Lin was a student, a son, a person with plans, routines, and relationships. He was not a symbol, not a character in a story. He was a real human being. And yet, almost immediately, his name risked being overshadowed by the spectacle surrounding his death. The internet focused on the video, the mystery, the identity of the killer, but at the center of it all was a life taken for attention. The violence didn't stop with the murder. Packages containing human remains were mailed to political offices and schools across Canada. Each delivery triggered evacuations, media coverage, national panic. This wasn't random. It was messaging. Each act ensured attention remained focused. Each package kept the story alive. The online persona had fully merged with real-world violence. The world was now watching. News outlets scrambled for details. Social media flooded with speculation. True crime communities went into overdrive. And somewhere behind a screen, the person responsible was paying attention, following coverage, reading comments, watching himself become famous. The very thing he had chased for years had finally arrived. But now, it came wrapped in horror. With national attention mounting, law enforcement intensified efforts to identify and locate the suspect. Digital footprints were analyzed, travel records examined, online activity scrutinized, and one realization became clear. The same internet behavior that allowed a false identity to flourish had left behind a trail. A trail that didn't disappear when the screen went dark. The persona had finally achieved fame, but it came at a cost no one else consented to pay. And as attention peaked, the escape began. After the murder and the mailing of remains, law enforcement faced one of the most complex manhunts in recent Canadian history. The suspect had vanished from Montreal. No sightings, no calls, no concrete leads. All that remained were digital footprints, scattered accounts, and fragmented pieces of evidence. International cooperation became critical. Interpol was involved. Border controls were alerted. Authorities traced flights, rail tickets, and even online activity, attempting to reconstruct a timeline of the suspect's movements. Yet the suspect, driven by the same obsession with attention that fueled the crime, was not hiding in silence. The suspect traveled across Europe, moving from city to city in a carefully calculated pattern. Hotels were booked under false identities, transport tickets purchased with cash, every step taken with the awareness that cameras might be watching. Yet despite this careful planning, the same compulsive traits that led to the original crime began to emerge. The world was looking for him, but so was he. And in that space between hiding and observing, he made mistakes. In June 2012, the fugitive was spotted in an internet cafe in Berlin. Police arrived and arrested him without resistance. The arrest marked the beginning of the next phase, the trial. Extradited back to Canada, the suspect faced a trial that would shock the nation. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence, digital communications and social media activity, flight and travel records, video footage of the crime, evidence of premeditation and intent. Throughout the trial, the defense attempted to argue mental instability, but the weight of the evidence left little room for doubt. Witnesses described the suspect's obsession with fame. Experts explained the psychology of attention-seeking behavior escalating to violence. Ultimately, the court convicted him, sentencing him to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 25 years. The trial was widely covered, both in Canada and internationally, highlighting not just the crime itself, but the intersection of digital culture and modern criminal behavior. What drives someone to commit a crime that is simultaneously calculated and performative? The same platforms that facilitated attention-seeking also created accountability. Online communities, digital footprints, and social media interactions became central to the investigation. Without the internet, both the crime and its resolution might have unfolded differently, but it raises an uncomfortable question. What are we centering when we consume true crime? The perpetrator, the spectacle, or the victim? Jun Lin was a young student with aspirations and a life ahead of him. Yet in the public discourse, his identity risks being overshadowed by the drama surrounding the crime. This tension is central to modern true crime storytelling, balancing fascination with respect, intrigue with empathy. The case serves as a warning. Digital validation is powerful, anonymity is tempting, and the need to be seen can escalate in unpredictable ways. For content creators, researchers, and casual social media users alike, there are lessons. Online behavior leaves traces. Obsession can amplify risk. Attention can reward dangerous behavior. communities can hold both perpetrators and institutions accountable. In a world where our digital selves are increasingly intertwined with reality, the boundary between performance and action is thinner than ever. The story of this case is more than a chronicle of crime. It is a study in psychology, a cautionary tale about technology, a reflection on humanity's fascination with notoriety. It is also a story about loss, about a life that ended too soon, about friends, family, and loved ones left behind, about the impact of violence that reverberates beyond the crime itself. As viewers, we are challenged to ask ourselves, who do we remember? Why do we focus on spectacle? And what responsibility do we carry when consuming such stories? The internet never forgets. But we must choose carefully what we do remember. Junlin mattered, not as a headline, not as a viral story, but as a human being whose life was stolen. And in remembering him, we find a reminder of the consequences of obsession, attention, and digital performance.